Hi, this is Swapnil Bharti, and welcome to another episode of TFR Insights. And today we have with us Chris Kozup, Chief Marketing Officer at Aruba, an HP enterprise company. Chris, first of all, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Great to be here.
If I'm not wrong, Aruba recently published finding of its recent survey of IT leaders, and there are a lot of interesting things there. So I would like to take a few minutes. Can you just share some of the key highlights of the survey?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is a survey that we conducted with over 2,400 IT decision makers across over 20 countries globally. And the focus of the survey was to really understand the impact that the global pandemic is having on IT decisions. And I think a number of very interesting findings. The first thing I would say is that probably no surprise, over 74% of IT decision makers indicated that they are experiencing either moderate to significant impact to their employee base as a result of the global pandemic. I don't think that that's a surprise in and of itself. But then looking at exactly what they're being forced to do and how they're being forced to respond to the pandemic has certainly been an interesting set of findings from the survey.
Right. Actually, if you look at the whole, uh, we have been telling companies for digital transformation, migrate to the cloud, and suddenly this crisis kind of put them on the path of super highway, acceleration of those things. So during this, this crisis, the I don't think for most companies their strategies have changed, but their priorities have changed certainly. So can you talk about what are the new priorities, top priorities that these IT companies, their leaders have, so as not only to survive through the crisis, but also whenever that happens, whenever we are through that, they come out still as strong players in their respective spaces.
So the first thing that we're seeing is very clearly a concern for the safety and well-being of the employee base. I think that pretty much all companies kind of reacted very rapidly to ensure that their employee base was set up in a safe and secure way. And that obviously led to a lot of discussions around remote working and home working. But we also see certainly that companies are taking a more cautious approach to capital expenditures, obviously looking to preserve liquidity during these uncertain times. And then thirdly, I would say that there are a number of companies that are actually looking at this as an opportunity to accelerate a number of the key transformation projects that they may have been working on. Obviously, the relevance of digital, the relevance of kind of new digital transformation opportunities has been brought to light, and certainly in many cases accelerated what organizations may have already been working on. So making sure our employees are safe, making sure that we can preserve cash and liquidity to weather any kind of storms to the business. But then ultimately, those organizations that we believe will emerge more strongly, very clearly using this opportunity to accelerate key business transformation efforts, primarily around digital use cases.
It's more or less about making sure that their employees, their teams are safe and secure. What about the IT side of it? What kind of change you have seen there? Like, are they still using software, or they are moving to services? Can you talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So in alignment with that, some very key areas of focus, and this was actually borne out in the survey data itself. First and foremost, we see an increased appetite for simplicity and scale. Again, probably not a surprise there. And that has actually led to an acceleration of the consumption of cloud, not just cloud as a destination for workloads, applications, and services, but cloud actually as a perhaps more efficient model for the delivery of IT services. As an example, in our research, we found that 38% of IT decision makers expect to increase their use of cloud managed networking, for example. And part of the reason for that is because with this type of operation through cloud managed networking, it allows the organization to respond more rapidly and at scale to the delivery of connectivity services to now a workforce that is increasingly remote. So cloud is definitely a key area where we expect to see greater acceleration in a post-pandemic world. And then I would say the second area here is really around automation. And I think that a lot of IT organizations have dabbled with automation and the use of AI technologies in particular. And what we're seeing is that this pandemic has also accelerated the desire to automate. And it's not so much out of the case of, wanting to reduce the number of IT staff or have, computers take over in place of humans, but how can they simplify everyday tasks using AI to help them automate the delivery of services, connectivity, security, et cetera, as a way to respond more rapidly to a dynamic environment around them. And in fact, again, the survey bore out that approximately 35% of IT decision makers expect to see an increase in the use of AI technologies over the coming years, and specifically to drive automation within their day-to-day tech practices.
When we talk about cloud, we actually, in today's world, we live in the multi-cloud or hybrid cloud world. As much as we love cloud, we cannot move everything to public cloud. We will still have our own data centers or a lot of. So, what kind of pattern you're seeing there for hybrid cloud, multi-cloud, and especially when you talk about leveraging AI, ML technologies, we have three major, players, and then there are other players as well. Everybody brings something to the table. Some companies have excellent AI capabilities, some have other. So customers also want to use mix and match whatever works best for them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, we're a firm believer that it's a hybrid world. Ultimately, we don't necessarily view that the cloud in and of itself is the destination. It's an operational model that allows for simplicity and scale. But absolutely, we support customers with needs that are on-prem in the public cloud. But ultimately, what we do believe is that there is a shift to the cloud experience, whether that cloud experience itself be on-prem or in the public cloud. The goal for Aruba, and certainly as part of Hewlett Packard Enterprise, is to ensure that the entire IT platform and system has that cloud native experience, can be consumed as a service for flexibility, but absolutely, we're fully in alignment in that organizations will have different workloads, applications, whatnot that may reside on-prem, and certainly those that may reside in the cloud. And the key is to provide them the simplicity to be able to navigate what ultimately will be that hybrid environment.
And it's not just the environment is hybrid. The workforce is also workplace is also kind of hybrid. Some people, especially if you look at federal government, a lot of employees, they do have to, I'm here in DC, so a lot of people, they still have to go to the Pentagon at the same time. A lot of people, they're working remotely. So suddenly you're mixing and matching the environments as well. Yes, you have VPN, but you don't have the same kind of, once you go into the corporate environment, you're safe, secure. So what kind of challenges are there, and how are they trying to kind of balance between these environments?
Yeah, this is a very topical point of conversation for our customers these days. And we talk about this actually in the context of the hybrid workplace. And, the hybrid workplace and how you design a workplace that can meet the requirements of the moment. It's not just a technology discussion. We have to first start to understand the nature of the business. It's very important to understand, okay, is the business heavily reliant on manufacturing or services, or is there a lot of R&D, right? And all these kind of dynamics of the focus of the business will go into defining what that workplace ultimately should look like. But we think about it certainly first and foremost, part of the hybrid concept here is ensuring that we have seamless, secure connectivity for a remote workplace, or remote workforce, I should say. and that employee can be met with the same level of experience, the same access to applications, the same well-rounded security that they would ultimately have in an in-building environment, but making sure that ultimately IT itself has the tools that are required to then go and provision those services, to manage, control, ensure that they have visibility into how all that connectivity experience is being delivered into the home. That's a core tenet of what Aruba provides for our customers, these remote access point and remote working environments. But then in addition to that remote workforce, we're seeing a lot of interest today in how customers can repatriate offices and do that in a safe and secure fashion. We obviously believe that the network here can play a very critical role through contextual information like location-based services, for example. We're seeing a huge amount of increase in demand from our customers around the use of location services for asset tracking, or in many cases, doing things like heat map density to understand how dense is the employee base in specific parts of the facility, or proximity alerting. If we have individuals that come into sustained contact with one another over a period of time, that can trigger, through the use of location within the networking environment, that can trigger alerts either to the administrator or potentially even to a mobile app to the employee themselves. And then finally, those are both preventative measures to ensure that we have enough distancing within the workplace. But finally, we're seeing a lot of interest actually in, heaven forbid, in a post-contagious environment where somebody does contract the virus, we have the ability to actually go back and do contact tracing to understand who that employee may have been in sustained proximity with while they were in the office. So you can see here this kind of hybrid workplace focusing on not just the technology around how we arm kind of a remote worker, but also how we repatriate the offices in a safe and secure way.
And the survey found that roughly, I think, 38% there will be increase of investment in cloud-based networking. Something that you were talking about earlier. Can you talk about some of the examples of what kind of impact it will have on the hybrid workplace?
Yeah, so I think cloud is, again, we think of cloud not just as a destination, but as an operational model. Ultimately, it's about delivering simplicity and scale. So one of the challenges that cloud-based or cloud-managed networking is really well suited to solve is, how do you connect a highly distributed workforce in a very rapid way with a single pane of glass of management for operations and control, right? So take this very simplicity. If we have an organization that has 1,000 employees and all of a sudden those employees now are no longer in the office, but we want them to have the same experience as that in-office experience, meaning the same access to applications, the same security profiles. We want to make sure that IT has the ability to see down to not just the user level in that remote location, but also the types of applications they're running, the experience and performance of those applications in that remote network environment. That's where the power of the cloud really comes fully to bear and ultimately allows for the organization to effectively just send an access point, in this case, to that remote worker's home. The remote worker plugs it in. That access point finds its configuration and connection directly to the cloud, and then instantly has the same profile, the same security policies, the same application prioritization as that user would have had in the office environment. So from the user experience perspective, that experience is seamless. It's a very seamless experience from going from office into remote location. And obviously from the administrator's perspective, everything is run through the cloud. So no matter where the location, how highly distributed those employees are, everything can be provisioned, configured, and managed with one click in a very simplistic way, and in making sure that ultimately all the security policies and profiles are remained intact, which of course is highly critical for any business, especially in these times.
And I also see that AI is going to be at the center, at the core of all of that is going on there. If we look at Aruba, let's talk about the company itself. We have talked about the problem and the reports and the survey. But if you look at Aruba, and if you look at this increasing demand for IT to play a lot of roles there, what do you have to offer there. How are you planning to kind of meet this demand that is there? And also, if you can just kind of elaborate, just for our audience, that what does, I should have actually asked this question in the beginning itself, just to give them some idea. What does Aruba do? That will help us also understand how do you help companies with this, AI based solutions.
Perfect. Well, let me start there. So Aruba is known in the industry as being a leader in all segments of networking. We are focused on the enterprise segment, not the consumer segment. And our focus is really on delivering a comprehensive end-to-end networking and security portfolio across large enterprise, mid-size enterprise, small and medium businesses, but really that allow organizations to have a single common framework for how they deliver connectivity from large campuses, branch environments, remote office environments, data center environments. And so really think of us as very much an end-to-end provider with leadership in all segments. We, of course, have driven a lot of the standards around innovations like Wi-Fi 6, around some of the key enhancements in switching, both across campus and data center environments. But ultimately, the key focus for us as an organization is to drive simplicity for our customers. And one of the key areas that we're able to do that is through the use of a comprehensive AI engine. And Aruba is unique in the industry to have really consistency across any connectivity method, whether that be Wi-Fi, whether it be Ethernet from a switching perspective, whether it be wide area network connectivity, again, data center connectivity, even pulling in diverse protocols like Bluetooth, like Zigbee, even the conversion with 5G, allowing customers to have a single consistent framework, and then ultimately using the power of cloud. Again, cloud is an operational model. Using the power then of telemetry that exists within the network, we're able to abstract insights and data from that comprehensive end-to-end networking environment and turn that into intelligence. And what that ultimately means for our customers is automation, right? And as we open this conversation, automation in a time where organizations have to adapt rapidly, where they may be facing resource challenges in terms of having enough staff or employees to get done what they need to get done, where the demands on the business are higher because, quite honestly, they have to respond quite rapidly. This is where the power of automation comes in, and this is where the power of Aruba AI, as part of our Aruba Edge Services platform, which is the foundational architecture, allows our customers to achieve those goals.
Can you talk about, the Aruba Edge platform? What is that?
Yeah, Aruba ESP or Aruba Edge Services platform is this end-to-end platform. Cloud native, leverages the power of AI, and the purpose of that is to be able to predict and preempt challenges that may arise in the networking environment, and then actually resolve those issues before the IT administrator actually has to take time to do so.
We're also talking a lot about edge computing these days. And edge does not necessarily mean those small sensors. Edge also means a whole data center at the edge itself. So how does Aruba look at edge computing, and how do you see this edge will evolve, especially after this crisis pandemic? There will be an increased demand for bringing your net computing closer to the user versus cloud, where you have to go to the cloud.
That's right. Yeah, we are, first of all, Aruba has been focused at the edge for the last many years. We are, as an organization, a leader in edge technologies. As part of Hewlett-Packard Enterprise, really we have a belief that ultimately we're now moving into this next decade, which is ultimately about the digitization of everything. Right? You think we've come from a last decade of mobile cloud, right? Where the emphasis was connecting users and mobile devices into apps and services in the cloud. This next decade ahead of us is all about how do we move towards the digitization, not just of users and devices, but of everything. And when we do that, ultimately, we need to reverse almost the way in which networks have been architected and built, distribute connectivity, security, compute, analytics, all down to the edge from a centralized kind of private or public cloud environment to allow us to process data in real time at the edge, turn that data into insights, and then ultimately drive business transformation through that. And so we're a very strong believer in that. Through our combined portfolio with Hewlett-Packard Enterprise, we're leading the market here in helping our customers realize the full potential of the edge. And that's, candidly, it takes a little bit of education oftentimes to bring the customer along to understand the potential that resides at the edge. But we believe that this will be the driving force in the next wave of economic growth, all happening at the edge.
Awesome. Chris, do you think now we have covered everything from the point of this discussion? Anything else you would like to touch upon, or we are good? We can wrap this up now.
Maybe as a close, that we are certainly seeing an increased interest in consumption services, flexible subscription services. That was another point that was borne out as part of this survey. Was certainly that an increase in demand for flexibility. So customers no longer looking just to provide, I would say, CapEx models, but also looking for the flexibility that as a service and subscription offers can provide as well.
Chris, thank you for the great discussion around the survey. I look forward to talk to you again. Thank you.
It was my pleasure. Thanks for your time.